I will.
We do have a big mover, though,
But
in the price of oil. Take a look at this. Brent crude back above $50 a barrel. WTI crude now up close to 11%.
I have a cable from the router outside
both of these
to my office.
Oils are in
And
bull
that
market
cable
territory right now.
only gives me 100 megabytes.
So at a fresh 2016
I should, by the time I put that cable, that was the fastest one. But right now I should change it and have the one up to 1 terabyte.
Shares are down over 4% right now.
To have the full speed from the router, the 300 megabytes.
Walmart shares also higher at this hour. Team USA continues to lead the medal count at the Rio Games, 94 in total.
Because I'm having much troubles. And actually I'm increasing right now to fifth, well, I'm going to do a different setup. I'm going to have 4 screens with one computer and 2 other screens with another computer.
Down more than 40%. CNBC's Scott Cohn, who has done extensive reporting into the prison business,
and that
by phone.
will
Scott, what do you
need
make of this
more
news?
speed, of course.
Well, to some degree, Brian, it was expected. This backlash against private prisons has been going on for years. Since
300 megabytes is very good.
Billions Behind Bars back in 2011. It's been going on even before that.
But sometimes if, for example, I have here, my wife is talking by FaceTime, and
instructing the Bureau of Prisons
when we are like 4 or 5 elements all together using internet, sometimes I have few troubles.
Operator, which has its stock down sharply, as you can see today. They get 11% of their revenue from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. A much larger percentage comes from state prisons, and of course we'll have to see whether states
we're trying to fix it.
They also,
installing a new cable.
They also do private detention services for the U.S. Marshal Service, which does not seem to be affected, and for the Department of Homeland Security's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, their immigration detention services, that also is not affected. GEO Group, which is the other large private prison operator, gets about 16% of the revenue from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Both companies have yet to respond to our request for a comment. So clearly this is a dent, but it is not a death knell for these companies by any means.
And this is an important point that you made at the top. And again, from an investment perspective, that's what we're looking at. And your point about state versus federal is key. There was a note out momentarily about 5 minutes ago from Heights Securities in Washington, D.C., and they basically reiterated what you just said, Scott, which is that the majority of revenues for Corrections Corp and GEO come on the state level. So even if the DOJ goes through with this plan, it's not as if the entire business model is gone, is it?
No, it's not. And, I mean, it is, as I said, a substantial amount of revenue here. But the other thing that we don't know is whether states will follow. There's been the same backlash at the state level, so we'll have to see what happens there. The other interesting issue, and this is actually pointed out in the Deputy Attorney General's note here
300 megabytes,
to the Bureau of Prisons, is that they are not ending
I have
private
a big computer. I cannot just Wi-Fi.
Halfway houses. And that is a big and growing part of CCA's business.
Yes, exactly.
Victor. So there's definitely
it's much simple.
Here, and some of it is probably warranted, but put it into context, this is, as I said, not the be-all and end-all for these companies.
All righty. Thank you very much, Scott. Now to Julia Borston for a quick news alert. Julia.
Hey, Tyler, that's right. Gawker.com will be shutting down next week after 14 years of operation. Now, this news comes just hours ahead of a Manhattan bankruptcy judge evaluating whether or not to approve Univision's $135 million bid for Gawker Media. Now, there are 6 other assets as part of Gawker Media in addition to Gawker.com, and we are awaiting news of what the plans are for those other websites. Back over to you.
All right, Julia, thank you.
Take a look at shares of Valiant Pharmaceuticals down about 3.8%. T. Rowe Price has filed a suit against the Canadian drug maker, alleging it engaged in a, quote, fraudulent scheme that cost T. Rowe Price and other Valiant investors billions of dollars. The lawsuit was filed earlier this week in federal court in New Jersey, became publicly available today. And in it, T. Rowe Price and Allegheny, another Valiant